Okay, good afternoon. We'll get going in just a second. Well, Amazon a good day today. I'm pretty happy about that. Although we had that one amazingly bad day last week, which I'm still trying to fight back from. So if you're wondering, so I'm in three stocks right now. All are long-term holds. So I'm not doing my normal buy in and get out quickly. Amazon is down. My average is 33.36. It's 31.10. So I'm down 226 on that. No issue. In a couple months, that'll be fine. Also added to Ford. I like Ford long term. I like Palantir. That I'll probably hold for a few years. I'll add to that every once in a while. So to those looking for things to swing, I don't have anything right now. I'll be looking at those going forward, but it's a tough time to kind of pick stocks. I'm waiting to see an overall trend happening. But I think getting into tech, getting into Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, I'm worried about headwinds on Facebook, especially legislatively. But Amazon I love. So that's where I am now. Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. Hi to everybody saying hi there. Jennifer, how are you? Jennifer, congratulations. A big day for Jennifer, one of the parents that worked to get our kids back in school. It was great to drive by Tisco this morning. Yesterday I saw a nice sign set outside of signing. But just driving by 20 minutes ago, a half hour coming here for the podcast, seeing all the kids coming out of Tisco was really cool, all the parents. And so a really good time if you're in Brantford. Beautiful day for it to get our kids back to school. Just a, really good time. In general, we'll talk about a few things today, but first is, getting kids back to school. The job that those parents did is amazing and spectacular, no question about it. I still don't understand why we're doing this staged, 1 week one, 1 week the next, whatever. It is what it is. We've gotten a lot of emails from parents and teachers, thanking for the support, but also wondering why. I don't have answers to why. I can't, I don't have inside information on what makes Hamlet tick. And, other schools just said, we're open, gave a date and opened. From everything we're hearing, schools are set up to open. You want to delay a week, they delayed a week. But no matter what the case is, it's all better than April 19th, which happened before. That's really due to two parents who took the lead. They changed the name of their group to Hornet Pride or something along those lines. So they'll remain active, it appears, going forward. And the only advice I have for them is the same advice I gave during this entire time. Don't let the activists take over. Be your own voice. Talk to parents. Attacking Hamlet, listen, that's easy target at this point. No, there's not a lot of Hamlet fans left. But you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to be productive doing that. And I think you saw that here. Yes, some parents did. And I get it. There's this overflow of emotion, a lot of anger. But in general, that's probably not the best way to get things done. But that being said, the conversation today may not be one that parents are going to be all that into, but we're going to talk about a lot of economics and a lot of some laws and budget process that are impacted by some things that are happening. So on a state level, and by the way, I have never had him on this podcast. Tomorrow will be the first time we have Vin Candelora on. So in Brantford, as we cover Brantford, it's Robin Comey, Christine Cohen, and Sean Scanlon. They've all been on, but they're all Democrats. We'll have Candelora on because he covers part of Guilford, but North Brantford, we're getting a lot of viewers from North Brantford as well. I'll reach out to Joe Zullo in East Haven as well to kind of expand that. I do want to call Sean and get him on as well to talk about some bills and also a Tweed Airport and some expansion plans there. So that being said, a couple issues that have more to do with economics and laws that are being passed and stances that are being taken by elected officials going forward. So often we have elected officials that either have been in politics their whole lives and don't understand basic business or basic economics. And in theory, and we all know this from going to college, from any classes we've taken, we can learn things in theory in a book. And then you get in the real world and you're like, that's not how it works. So yes, learning, the chemical composition of something, you can learn that. How to run a business, the class is great, but you don't know it until you're actually out there running a business. So I hear a lot of politicians saying things like we support small businesses until you know what it's like to be awake at night, lying in bed, wondering how you're going to meet payroll. You don't know what it's like. I will take someone who has been a successful small business owner than a doctorate in anything, because that small business owner understands payroll, legal issues, how to keep the restaurant clean, how to work long hours. They understand so many different things, so many areas of expertise they have to grow that business. We get this idea of everybody at Yale is a doctorate and they're brilliant and they're more intelligent than somebody else. No, being a doctorate in French philosophy doesn't help anybody. Congratulations, I guess. But at the end of the day, you study a lot of books. I want the person who actually lived it and went out and worked in the real world, started a business, has a basic understanding of economics and how those work. And so we'll start by talking about a local issue. So locally, we saw last week or 2 weeks ago, Jamie Cosgrove, who will almost assuredly run for re-election. He hasn't announced yet, but he'll run, is going to be challenged by a Democrat, Tom Brockett. And so Brockett's record's not good. His record on the RTM is just not good. It is, we've talked about as he's came up, fairly dishonest, some truly questionable what the hell moments, and stances that just don't make sense. Now, we have 7-8 months to election time, so you're going to start hearing more and more from him and make claims that are kind of absurd. I'll give you an example of what happened in the last week with a New Haven Register article and then a letter Tom Brockett wrote to the Board of Finance. And you just reach a point where you say, what the hell? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? And then we're also going to look at a law in the state legislature where some people were going to say the exact same thing about Justin Elicker in New Haven. So we have a budget process every year. The Branford budget process is the town departments get together. The Board of Ed passes its budget, sends it over to the town. Town departments, police, fire, public works, whatever it is, all do their budgets. They meet with the first selectman. He may tell them some things are too high, some things are too low, but they still put their budget forward. And so the biggest budget you're going to see is that first initial budget. So Cosgrove puts it all together. He puts it out to the Board of Finance. It comes out. This year's budget calls for a mill rate increase of about 9/10 of a mil, not that high. We still have one of the lowest mill rates in the area. Last year, mill rate actually went down. We have to point out here, the last rate, the mill rate went down, and Tom Brockett trashed the budget for no reason, just political, but he trashed the mill rate that went down, which is amazing to me, but whatever. That said, this budget goes to the Board of Finance, and Tom Brockett writes a letter. I'm going to read you portions of this letter because as I read it, I said to him, does this guy have any basic understanding of economics? I'm going to pull this up and read it. It's sent to Joe Mooney. Now, I'm going to tell you something. The Board of Finance is 6 members, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, who in general don't give a shit about nonsense. Tom Brockett's bullshit isn't going to get him very far. The Board of Finance sees the budget. They make cuts to the budget. They do it every year. Doesn't matter if their first selectman's Democrat or Republican. It's the process. All the budgets come forward. They make cuts to it. That's normal. This is the letter from Brockett. I'm writing to you on behalf of the RTM Democratic Caucus to express our concerns on the budget, given these difficult financial times so many of our residents have faced this year. Specifically, we're recommending that the Board of Finance, if at all feasible, present a budget to the RTM that maintains the current mill rate for the coming year and curbs discretionary spending to every extent possible. So I'm going to stop there. One is a warning to the Democrats on the RTM caucus. Stop letting stop letting Tom Brockett talk for you. If you have a brain and you're a Democrat on the RTM, start saying, you do not speak for me. In those meetings, in letters, do not let this idiot speak for you. I'm going to explain why in a second. We are recommending that the Board of Finance present a budget to the RTM, maintains the current mill rate, and curbs discretionary spending to every extent possible because of the financial times we're facing. Ask a real estate agent what should happen when you have interest rates this low. When you have interest rates as low as they are now, you increase your spending. Why? Because infrastructure happens over time. You pay for it for 10 years or 15 years or 30 years, and you lock in tiny rates for many, many years. Idiots say things like, oh my God, the economy's bad, so let's not spend. The economy's good from an infrastructure standpoint. What the town has done under Jamie Cosgrove over the last 6, 8, 10, even under Unctor Ross with the same Board of Finance, is say, let's save as much money as possible and be in a position to keep our bond rating high, maintain that AAA bond rating, get the lowest possible interest rates, and when we're in that position, and when we get those interest rates, to attack. We took advantage of things like the highest reimbursement rates from the state by attacking in a timely manner when some Democrats wanted to push that off. We took advantage of interest rates and smart decision-making by combining the senior center and community house into one building. We can now get rid of another building. That's smart long-term. With the interest rates as low, and if you talk to any real estate agent, what are they telling you to do? You can buy a more expensive home because interest rates are low. You can refinance your home because interest rates are low. Lock it in. Now people are spending money on their homes because now is the time to borrow money. The rates are so low. And you have someone running for office who says, wait a minute, let's do the opposite. Let's cut back. That's just dumb. That's not understanding basic economics. The town has built up a savings account, I don't know, 18, 20, $22 million in it. We have a spectacular bond rating waiting for now. Doesn't mean spend money wrongly. Doesn't mean spend money on projects that don't make sense. But this is when you spend money. This is when you lock in those interest rates for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. That's in the best interest of the taxpayers. Secondly, there is nothing smart about putting off smart infrastructure projects. It's like saying we don't have the money. The roof needs to be done, so let's wait a couple years until it gets worse, the water comes in, and there's much more damage. That's not smart. Spending money wisely with low interest rates on infrastructure is smart. Branford has built up a savings account to take advantage of these low interest rates. A candidate telling you cut back on infrastructure spending is a fucking moron. Now, this isn't a surprise to anybody watch this. I am dumbfounded that this guy continues to open his mouth or that anybody in the caucus lets this guy speak for him. I am dumbfounded by it. And I'm quite sure Joe Mooney and Jeff Willett and Victor Costello, the Democrats on the Board of Finance, aren't going to listen. Because they never do. They'll make the cuts they always do. They'll discuss it with Jamie. They'll be bipartisan. They'll be fine. Nobody listens to this guy. But this is absurd. Somebody who represents the town and is looking for higher office, sending a letter like this that basically says, I'm a fool who does not understand basic economics. I'm going to go a little further on this. It says, given the number of projects to which funds have already been allocated, we think the good judgment retires the town to finish these projects before funding any new initiatives. Wrong. You should be funding as many new initiatives as you can. You should be locking in interest rates as much as possible on every project, even going forward right now. That's what you should do. That's okay. So he asked to put off all these new projects, any new infrastructure projects, put them off until everything else currently is done. Well, those are paid over the next 15, 20 years, so you're not going to put them off that long. But this is in stark contrast to another quote from this guy. Here's the New Haven Register in the announcement that he was running for office. And this was written by the journalist. I don't know her name, but whatever. Brockett says he needs better communication from town government, more fiscal responsibility, and improved infrastructure to make the town more attractive. He wants more recreation, more access to open space, sidewalks to make downtown area more accessible, and more attention paid to the town's bioscience community. So he wants to, in one article, increase infrastructure spending. In the letter to the Board of Finance, says put all spending on hold. What the hell? By the way, if you don't know, more access to open space. You have more open space under Jamie Cosgrove than you've had ever. Sidewalks to make downtown area more accessible. We've added sidewalks to downtown area. More attention to debate to the bioscience. That's a private sector issue, but we spend a lot of time on that. I haven't seen Brockett at any economic development meetings. I've seen Jamie there. I've seen our bioscience community. It's all nonsense. But the most striking aspect of it is if a lawyer running to be first selectman doesn't understand basic economics, are they qualified to run for office? And how many other people don't understand basic economics? And I have an answer for you. The mayor of New Haven, Justin Elicker. Now, Justin Elicker, in a law being proposed at the state level, a law basically that says around train stations, the local planning and zoning is kind of out the window, and they're going to apply a plan to put more affordable multi-unit housing around train stations. There's also other laws that are pushing New Haven's housing authority to have more pull and authority in other towns around it. They want to basically put affordable housing in towns other than New Haven. And it's basically saying that local planning zones are not doing a good enough job getting affordable housing. Now, we've talked a lot about affordable housing, and it's a nonsense law. It makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense. The numbers don't add up. The law itself doesn't make sense. And clearly, it's been around for decades and doesn't work if we're still yelling about it. But it has become the norm in the last 2 to 3 years, especially, to say it's all about racism. To say if you're not for affordable housing, you're racist. And so Justin Elicker comes out in answer to a question while giving testimony in favor of this law, and basically says that, I'm going to read it directly from, hold on one second. I'm going to pull this article up. His quote was, "Greenwich and New Canaan actively discriminate against people of color to keep them out." Now, that's a serious statement. You're implying entire towns are racist. Maybe these zoning laws that have been there forever, that the current members of planning and zoning commissions and the current members who appointed them in the current town is actively trying to keep people of color out. It's nonsense, because I can tell you, years ago, I worked in New Canaan. Yes, it's mostly white. But projects I worked on were many, many Indians, many, many Jewish people, not as many black people, but some. The one thing they all had in common, they had money. Greenwich is a rich town. New Canaan's a rich town. Darien, these are wealthy towns. And they do work to maintain single-family homes in those towns. No question about it. It has everything to do with economics. It has nothing to do with race. If Michael Jordan moved next to them, no one would have a problem with it. In Greenwich at the time, Allen Houston, who was a New York Knick, lived in downtown Greenwich. No one thought twice of it. They're all proud of that. We want this massive, massive push to make it about race and fire up race and all this nonsense. It's economics. Some areas are going to be wealthier than others. That's life. There's a reason we don't live in Greenwich. But this idea that Greenwich is doing everything they can to keep out black people or Jew, whatever race they want to keep out, I don't see a whole bunch of poor white people in Greenwich. I don't see Greenwich saying, listen, we'll take any white people no matter what their economic. If you take race out of this, what's true is true. Rich people still live there. And people of all races live there. It's everything to do with how much money you have. Rich people spend extra to have larger plots of land and have a single house on that plot of land. We all aspire to be that at some point. I guess it depends. I guess it's personal preference. It's amazing, we've had these affordable housing, and the biggest advocates for affordable housing also happen to live in the whiter areas. Elicker doesn't live in Fairhaven. All these, here we had Jay Pottinger, an attorney, Democrat locally, works at Yale, yelling and screaming, calling everybody racist, lives in Pine Orchard. He could easily go move to Fairhaven if he wants to, lives in Pine Orchard. But affordable housing somewhere else, as long as it's not near me. They all go live in the whitest areas and the wealthiest areas. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying they're racist by living in a whiter area. They're living in an expensive area. And they obviously felt that they wanted to raise their children in that area, maybe for crime, for whatever reason. But they certainly don't practice what they preach. And the argument's nonsense. They're yelling about race. It's not about race. But here's the problem with this entire concept of affordable housing. Taxes, the biggest income taxes come from Fairfield County. Does it make fundamental sense to put lower income housing and lower value housing in an area where the biggest funding in your tax base comes from in the state? Fairfield County is the Gold Coast. That's where huge amounts of money comes from that fund everywhere else in the state. ECS funding that goes to New Haven, to Danbury, to Waterbury, to Hartford schools. All that redistribution of money that comes into the state from income taxes, which comes from Fairfield County, goes to the rest of the state. How does it make sense to devalue that? It's like having a store and you have 10 customers and 2 customers are bringing you 80% of your revenue. Would it make sense to say, I want less of that? Let's devalue what they can buy? That's just bad business. It's just stupid. While one person doesn't understand what basic economics is running for first selectman in Brantford, the first selectman and the mayor of New Haven has no concept of economics. By the way, it's a very simple thing here. If you want to run for Greenwich, then run for Greenwich. I mean, it's amazing that a New Haven mayor is talking about Greenwich. It's amazing that they're trying so hard to get minorities out of their own town by calling other towns racist. Those zoning laws have been there for a while. They're there to keep rich people there. They're there to keep poor people out of every race and every color. Greenwich isn't putting up a trailer park. It's not happening. They're not inviting in a bunch of poor white people. Not happening. They're rich. You want to make it about race? Knock yourself out, but it's not true. That's a political ploy. It's nonsense. And it's basic lack of economic understanding. Why would you take the place where the vast majority of income tax comes from in a state that is dying to tax things, dying to bring in more revenue, and say, let's put low-income housing there? That's just dumb. And by the way, has the affordable housing law worked at all? This claim that we need to get New Haven people to go to other areas and get better education. New Haven people have come to Brantford to get better education. It happens already. There are programs that set that up. But in general, when affordable housing is built, if we built 200 units of affordable housing in downtown Greenwich tomorrow, and applications came in for it, they can't guarantee it comes from anybody black or red or green or Jewish or whatever. They can't guarantee it comes from whatever town. We've had people, even locally, say, Brantford needs more affordable housing. Some people are really struggling. Okay, if we build it, but we can't guarantee it goes to Brantford people. You bring people in from other towns because they all apply for it. Who wouldn't apply to get into a brand new affordable housing structure? It doesn't do what they say it does. It doesn't combat racism. It doesn't help people in that same town by any means. It does nothing. And because they're not paying property taxes, and they're getting away without paying property taxes, they're not contributing to the tax base of the town while adding to the services. It doesn't make sense. And the places that are most ripe for affordable housing are generally places that are kind of caught in the middle. Greenwich is never going to happen. Property in Greenwich costs a fortune. But Indianette can happen, where in that proposed Parkside development, you would have rents that are $900, $1,000, $1,100, $1,200. There are some rents in this area. Market rate rents already at that number. Jay Pottinger stands up in a meeting and says we're being racist. About 400 yards that way is Parkside. I live that close to Parkside. I'm fine. I don't give a damn. They're fine. I know a lot of the members there. But the people yelling about affordable housing, claiming that in the neighborhood, if we fight it, we're racist, are the people who don't live here. Don't claim I'm racist when I live next to it. That's nonsense. It's bullshit. Ellicker's comments made no sense. And the op-ed in the Greenwich, what article was this? In the Greenwich Sentinel was that Ellicker should apologize. He absolutely should. You want to run to be mayor of Greenwich, then run to be mayor of Greenwich. You want to run to be first selectman of New Canaan, then run for that. You're the mayor of New Haven. Fix your shit. The fact that you have a problem and you can't fix your budget and you can't get revenue in there, that's not on me. We send a fortune to New Haven. We talked about ECS funding last year, or about 2 weeks ago. Let's look this up. ECS budget, ECS funding by town. So this is money that we pay in not property taxes, in income taxes to the state. Now they have let's see, by town, let's see if we can do 2020. All right, let's look. ctschoolfinance.org. Some organization does this. Let's see if we can see it by town. And also state education funding for governors. Town by town. Okay, here we go. We're going to open this up in an Excel spreadsheet. Let's just see what the fairness is of income tax that comes in, of monies that are redistributed to towns, what Brantford gets or what Greenwich gets, and then what New Haven gets. Brantford gets in ECS dollars, estimated 2019 revised 2.2 million in 2020, 2.4 million in 2021, 2.69 million. Okay, those are the estimated numbers. Now this gives us a ballpark. I'm not sure if this is exactly what passed or it changed. Let's go to Greenwich. Let's see what Greenwich gets in ECS dollars. This is money taken in by the state and then redistributed to towns. Greenwich gets 181,000. So Greenwich gets less than 10% of what Brantford gets. This year, 277, and the next year, 379. So Greenwich gets a tiny, tiny fraction of what Brantford gets. So just for the hell of it, Brantford's in the $2 million range. Greenwich is in the $200,000 range. And New Haven, let's scroll down here to New Haven. New Haven, 155 million. That's 75 times what Brantford gets. That's what? 155, I don't know, 700, 800 times what Greenwich gets. 158 this year, 161 in 2021. 75 times as much as Brantford gets. 700 times what Greenwich gets. And Justin Elicker had the balls to call those towns racist. That's where your money's coming from. That money that Greenwich pays in taxes goes to you. That money that New Canaan pays in taxes goes to you, and you stand there and call them racist. There are some people that just don't get basic economics. Tom Brockett doesn't get basic economics. Elicker doesn't get basic economics. You know, it's funny. I've talked about Brockett a few times on this because he's a local in Brantford. If you're not listening from Brantford, I'm in Brantford. I talk about Brantford a lot. When Trump was president, you know, I talked a few times about how ridiculous half his tweets were. And then people would say, oh, you're getting on him too hard. But as I would have the conversation, as we'd be saying this publicly, he would tweet something else ridiculous, like moronic. He handed it to you. It's like the gift that kept on giving his opponents. Like, Jesus Christ. I've called out Brockett 3 or 4 times, yet every couple days something new comes out where he's just so full of shit. We need more infrastructure, more sidewalks. On one article, in the next letter he's sending to the Board of Finance saying, we don't want any more spending. Don't. Hold off on any other new projects. You're an idiot. And the bigger idiots are the member of the RTM Democratic Caucus who let this man speak for you. In Brantford, you have Joe Mooney, the former head of the state IRS, Revenue Services. Villette, who's run multiple large sales organizations. Victor Casella runs one of the most successful businesses in town, admired business in town. You have 3 Republicans on there. Jamie Cosgrove, a degree in economics from UNH. Jim Finch, the finance director. Incredible people who know basic finance, know economics, know how to run a budget, and have shown it. I'm going to listen to Tom Brockett? If you're a Democrat on the RTM, call Jamie, call Joe Mooney, call Jeff Villette, call Jim Finch. Tom Brockett's the person you let speak for you? That makes no sense. Justin Elicker gets hundreds of times more money from the state than Greenwich does. Greenwich pays hundreds of millions more to the state than they'll ever get back. Justin Elicker calls them racist? We have some dumb people in politics. Math doesn't lie. Economics don't lie. Don't fall for this shit. It's unfortunate because we want to talk about real stuff, but Jesus Christ. This nonsense of you're racist if we don't get our way. We don't get the law we want, you're racist. Put spending on hold in the middle. You have interest rates the lowest they're ever going to be, and his response is don't spend money. Now's the time you lock in those interest rates. This is basic stuff. This is basic stuff. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Michael, so some of the comments here, I'm losing you, Michael, a little bit on New Haven 130, Greenwich 62. I'm not knowing what you're saying. If things were even, New Haven would get 2 times Greenwich, 9 times, and 4x Branford. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but is that per capita? Well, the per capita income of New Haven is not 130,000. So the per capita, I believe, Branford's in the $80,000 range. Cosgrove's with this town. Look, Jamie. Here's the deal with Jamie Cosgrove. He's honest. There's only way to put this. He's honest. He makes smart decisions. That's it. Period populations per capita. Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah, if New Haven got double, that'd be fine. No one will complain about that. If they got 10 times as much, that'd be fine. They're getting hundreds times more than Greenwich is getting. And then the guy had the nerve to call the other town racist. Thank you for all the money. Thank you for paying for education system. But you're racist. Give me a break. It's crazy. Just want to make sure we get through any comments that I've missed. Good afternoon. Brock, I'm amazed. Not at Brock. Brocket's been this way since day one. We had a meeting early on where a legal case was about to be settled on Crescent Bluff, and Brockett got up and gave this speech taking credit for it. He had nothing to do with it. I mean, I covered the legal issue for the last 5-6 years, completely botched by Uncle Ross. It was this long waiting game in the process because there are all these different people involved. It was nonsense in that neighborhood. The town wasn't involved, and they were bought into it. They finally get a settlement, and Tom Brockett gets up and takes credit for it. Wasn't even in office for any of those years. He had nothing to do with it. Jesus Christ. Just crazy. They're going to keep Jamie Cosgrove, Branford voters. You're doing great. Branford's in great fiscal shape. If they want to make the town more affordable, they need to find ways to reduce the cost of living, like reducing tax and fuel costs. I don't know if you're talking about Greenwich or what have you. Greenwich has affordable housing. Well, they're going to go after it for an easy target. It's easy to explain to their base, Greenwich, the wealthy white people, the wealthy white people, the wealthy white people. But average people don't fall for that crap. Said it would matter if we were blue. Cosgrove, and Michael. And thank you for posting that, Michael. I appreciate it. All right, that being said, that's my rant for today. We are going to have, did I say tomorrow is Candelora? Let me just double check that. He just confirmed a few minutes ago. So if there are questions that you have for Vin Candelora is the minority leader. Vin is the 23rd, tomorrow at 4 p.m. So Vin Candelora is here tomorrow. I will call and try to get, I'd like to get Sean on to go about tweet a little bit, but I also want to get Cohen and Comey on in the next couple days or next week. I'll contact them as well. And as we get towards the end of the session here, it's important that we see what's going on with some of these laws. The affordable housing laws are a big part of it. And that 1% tax, which I don't think either one is going to go very far, but, you know, it gets to a point where these things are on enough, and the pressure's there. It's like a representative from Branford or Guilford wants to pass something. They may need Democrats from New Haven to pass it, no matter how small it is. And eventually some votes get traded, and enough votes get traded, bad laws can pass. And we'll talk about that a little more. Also on Wednesday, not tomorrow with him, but Wednesday, we'll talk about some things that happened to the police law that impacted that very controversial law that passed at the end of last year. That being said, guys, thanks for joining me. It is spectacular outside. I hope you're not stuck inside. Get out. I'm going to do the same thing on my way to the gym. And so I will see you all tomorrow at 4. We will have State Representative Vin Candelora on at that time. Have a great night.